Imagine this. You're in the middle of a conversation, explaining your thoughts or sharing an idea you've been thinking about for days. You're speaking, but you can tell people aren't really listening. Maybe they're nodding out of politeness, glancing at their phones, or just waiting for their turn to talk. You feel dismissed, unheard, almost invisible. Has that ever happened to you? If it has, you're not alone. We've all been in that frustrating moment asking ourselves, what am I doing wrong? Why don't they take me seriously? Now let's flip that scenario. Think about someone whose words carry weight. Maybe it's a colleague at work, a leader you admire, or even a friend who speaks with quiet authority. When they talk, people listen. They don't need to shout or dominate the room. Their presence, their words, and the way they speak command respect. Here's the real question. What's the difference between them and you? Is it something they were born with? Is it confidence, charisma, or is it something you can learn? Today, I want to show you how you can cultivate that kind of respect. And the best part? You don't need to change who you are. You just need to change the way you approach your conversations. And for that, we're turning to a source of wisdom that's been guiding people for thousands of years, Stoic philosophy. The Stoics believed that how you speak reflects how you think and who you are. They taught us that words are powerful, not because they're loud or clever, but because they're intentional, honest, and grounded in truth. And let me tell you, when you adopt this mindset, when you apply their teachings, everything changes. People begin to take you seriously, not because you've learned some clever tricks, but because you've become the kind of person whose words deserve respect. Here's where I want you to pause and reflect. Think about a recent conversation where you felt unheard or dismissed. Was it because you weren't speaking clearly, or because your emotions got the better of you? Maybe it was because the other person just wasn't ready to listen. These moments aren't failures. They're opportunities. Opportunities to refine how you speak and present yourself. And that's exactly what we're going to explore today. By the end of this video, you'll understand powerful Stoic principles that will transform the way you speak. You'll learn how to stay calm and composed in any conversation, how to ensure your words reflect your inner values, and most importantly, how to communicate in a way that earns you not just attention, but true respect. Whether you're at work, with friends, or in a tough situation, these tools will help you make every word count. So, if you're ready to stop feeling overlooked and start commanding respect, stay with me. And while you're here, take a second to hit that like button. It's a simple way to show me you're committed to this journey. And if you're new here, subscribe, because this channel is all about using timeless wisdom to help you live a better, stronger life. You won't want to miss what's coming next. Respect isn't about forcing others to see your value. It's about becoming someone who embodies it. Let's dive in and explore how Stoic philosophy can guide you to speak in a way that truly resonates. Are you ready? Let's get started. Number 1. Ditch the "I'm sorry" habit. Okay, let's talk about the 2 words that are ruining your life. I'm sorry. Yeah, I said it. Stop apologizing for every little thing. It's not cute. It's not polite, and it's definitely not helping anyone respect you. Controversial, sure. But let's break this down. When you apologize unnecessarily, you're not being polite. You're undermining yourself. It's like you're telling the world, hey, don't take me seriously. I'm already assuming I'm wrong. You're practically handing people permission to walk all over you. Picture this. You walk into a room and say, sorry, I'm late, even though you're only 2 minutes behind because traffic was a nightmare. Now you've framed yourself as the problem when honestly life just happened. Or how about this classic? Someone bumps into you and you blurt out, oh, sorry, what are you sorry for? Being physically present. Let me tell you about the time I realized I had a full-blown sorry addiction. I was in a meeting and someone interrupted me, and guess what I said? Oh, sorry, go ahead. Excuse me. Why was I apologizing for being interrupted? That was my turning point, so I started catching myself every time I was about to say, I'm sorry. I stopped and asked myself, do I actually owe anyone an apology, or am I just trying to soften the moment? Spoiler alert. 90% of the time, there was no reason to apologize. Apologizing when it's unnecessary isn't just a habit. It's a mindset. It's like you're apologizing for existing, for taking up space, for being human. And if you keep doing it, guess what? People will start to believe you. They'll see you as someone who's always in the wrong, someone who doesn't value themselves enough to stand tall. But here's the truth. You have every right to take up space, to have opinions, to make mistakes. Respect doesn't come from saying, I'm sorry. It comes from owning your presence and your imperfections. So what do you say? Instead, let's rewrite the script. Instead of, sorry, I'm late, try thank you for waiting. Instead of, sorry for bothering you, say, do you have a moment? Instead of, sorry, can I add something? Go with, I'd like to add something. Boom. Now you're confident and respectful without apologizing for your existence. The next time you're about to say, I'm sorry, pause. Ask yourself, do I actually need to apologize? Or am I just trying to make myself smaller? Respect starts with how you respect yourself. Ditch the unnecessary stories, and you'll be amazed at how people start to see and hear you differently. Number 2. Set boundaries and stick to them. Let's cut through the fluff. If you're not setting boundaries, you're not being selfless, you're being spineless. Yeah, I said it, and before you get mad at me, think about it. How many times have you said yes to something you didn't want to do just to keep the peace? How often have you let someone overstep because you didn't want to seem difficult? Let's talk about why boundaries are not just nice to have, they're a requirement for respect. Here's the deal. Boundaries aren't about keeping people out. They're about teaching people how to engage with you respectfully. Think of them as the rules of your personal game. No boundaries, no rules. And if there are no rules, people will play however they want. Spoiler alert, that usually doesn't end well for you. Let me make it simple. When you don't set boundaries, you're basically saying, your comfort is more important than my sanity. Sound familiar? That's why you're stuck answering texts at 2 a.m. or working late because someone forgot to finish their part of the project. Here's where it gets controversial. When you start setting boundaries, people are going to get mad. Why? Because they've gotten used to you bending over backward for them. Trust me, I've been there one time. I told a close friend I couldn't help the move because I had other plans. They hit me with the guilt trip. Wow. I thought you were someone I could count on. And for a second I almost caved, but then I realized this isn't about me being a bad friend. It's about them not respecting my time. So I stuck to my boundary. Guess what? They found someone else to help, and we're still friends. People will adjust, but only if you hold the line. I'll never forget the day I realized my lack of boundaries was costing me my peace. I had this coworker who always dumped last-minute tasks on me. At first I'd say, sure, no problem, because I wanted to seem helpful, but then I noticed a pattern every time I bailed them out. They'd do it again one night as I was staying late to fix their mistakes. I had an epiphany. I thought, why am I prioritizing their lack of organization over my own life? So the next time they tried it, I said, I can't help with that right now. You'll need to figure it out. Did they pout? Sure. Did they figure it out? Absolutely. And I went home on time for once. Here's the truth. Boundaries aren't about being mean. They're about showing people and yourself that your time, energy, and well-being matter. If you don't value your limits, no one else will. But here's the other side of it. Boundaries aren't just for the people who respect you. They're for the people who don't. Setting boundaries helps you filter out those who aren't willing to treat you with dignity. And that's not selfish, that's self-preservation. Here's a tip: don't over-explain. For that is enough. No excuses, no apologies. And here's the key: stick to it. Because if you cave, you You're teaching people that your boundaries are negotiable. Also, practice saying no to small things. It's like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets. Start with something low stakes, like turning down an invitation you're not excited about. Once you see that the world doesn't end, saying no gets easier. Look, setting boundaries isn't easy. It's uncomfortable, and it's going to ruffle some feathers. But the alternative, living a life where everyone else's needs come before your own, and let me tell you from experience, that's a fast track to burnout and resentment. So start small. Define what you need, communicate it clearly, and most importantly, stick to it, because the only people who get upset about your boundaries are the ones who benefit from you having none. And honestly, good riddance. Set the boundary. Trust me, it's worth it. Number 3. Master the art of pausing. You felt that, didn't you? That little bit of tension when I paused. That's the power of silence. My friend, it makes people pay attention, but here's the catch. Most people are so uncomfortable with silence that they'll do anything to fill it. They talk too much, rush their points, and end up sounding like they're trying to sell you something, instead of simply speaking their truth. But here's the controversial reality. The pause isn't empty. It's where your power lives. We live in a culture where speed is everything. Fast talkers are seen as confident, quick thinkers. But here's the thing. Fast doesn't always mean effective. When you speak quickly without pauses, your words can feel like background noise, something people hear but don't really listen to. But a pause that forces people to tune in, it creates anticipation. It's like music. Imagine a song that's just non-stop, beats with no breaks or changes. It's overwhelming, right? A pause in music creates rhythm, and a pause in speech does the same. It's not about saying less, it's about making every word count. I wasn't always a fan of pausing. In fact, I was the worst at it back in the day. I thought I needed to prove myself with an endless stream of words, meetings, conversations, even dates. I was constantly filling the air, thinking silence would make me look unsure. And honestly, it didn't make me look smart or confident. It made me exhausting. One time I was pitching an idea at work. I was so caught up in explaining every detail but I didn't realize people had checked out halfway through. Afterward, my manager pulled me aside and said, "You've got great ideas, but you don't give people time to process them." Ouch, right? That was my wake-up call. I realized I was doing all the work for my audience instead of trusting them to catch on. When I started practicing pauses, it felt weird at first, like really weird. I'd say something, stop to let it land, and immediately want to jump in and explain myself. But over time, I noticed something amazing. People started paying more attention. Instead of zoning out, they were leaning in. They weren't just hearing me, they were listening. Here's the moment that really solidified it for me. I was giving a presentation, and I intentionally slowed down and added pauses. After key points afterwards, someone came up to me and said, "That was so impactful." I felt like every word mattered. That's when I knew I was onto something. It wasn't just about what I said, it was about how I said it. Here's the deeper lesson. Pausing isn't just about speaking, it's about presence. It's about being so secure in what you're saying that you don't feel the need to fill every moment with noise. A pause says, "I trust my words to speak for themselves." It's a kind of confidence that's rare, and that's exactly why it commands respect. But it's not just about confidence. Ping teaches us patience. It forces us to slow down and let things sink in. And let's be honest, in a world that's always rushing, there's something powerful about someone who's willing to take their time. It shows they value their words and yours. Now let me address the critics, because I know you're out there. You're probably thinking, if I pause, people will think I'm lost or unsure. Let me flip that for you. Pausing doesn't make you look unsure. It makes you look deliberate. It tells people, I'm thinking, I'm intentional, and I'm not afraid of a little silence. And if someone mistakes that for hesitation, that's their problem, not yours. The art of pausing isn't just about speech, it's about life. It's about knowing when to slow down, when to let things breathe, and when to let the silence speak louder than words. So the next time you're tempted to fill the gaps with chatter, resist, trust the pause, lean into the discomfort. Because when you master the P's, you don't just earn respect, you own the room, and honestly, that's the kind of power you deserve. See what I did there? Number 4. Use humor without turning into a clown. Humor is like hot sauce used right. It elevates everything used wrong. It ruins the whole dish. And let me tell you, nothing makes people lose respect for you faster than when you cross the line from being funny to being a clown. I know that sounds harsh, but hey, someone's got to say it. So let's break it down. How do you use humor to win ECT instead of losing it? First, let's address the obvious. Humor is a fantastic tool. It breaks tension, builds connections, and can even make you look smarter. Yeah, studies back that up. But here's the controversial part. If you're not careful, humor can backfire hard when you rely too much on jokes, especially self-deprecating ones, or if you're constantly playing the fool, people start seeing you as well a fool. And trust me, nobody respects a punchline that doesn't know when to quit. Here's where it gets real. I used to be that guy, the one who always had a joke ready, even when the moment didn't call for it. I thought I was being charming, but in reality, I was undermining myself. I'll never forget this one time in a meeting. I cracked a joke about my own workload, something like, "Oh, I'm just here to make spreadsheets look pretty." Everyone laughed, but afterward my manager pulled me aside and said, "You're too good at what you do to downplay yourself like that." That hit me. I realized that while humor was getting me attention, it wasn't always the kind of attention I wanted. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying you need to turn into some ultra-serious robot. Humor is an incredible way to build rapport and lighten the mood. But here's the key. It has to serve a purpose. Are you using humor to connect with people, or are you using it to deflect, distract, or beg for approval? For example, self-deprecating humor can be great in moderation. It shows humility and relatability. But if you're constantly the butt of your own jokes, people might start to believe you. There's a fine line between laughing with people and giving them permission to laugh at you. Here's the deeper message. Humor is about timing, intent, and balance when used thoughtfully. It's a sign of intelligence and confidence, but when it becomes a crutch, it's a sign of insecurity. And I know because I've been there. Was a time in my life when I used humor to avoid difficult conversations. If someone gave me critical feedback, I'd crack a joke to deflect. If I felt uncomfortable in a serious discussion, I'd turn it into a laugh fest. And you know what happened? People stopped taking me seriously. I had to learn that respect doesn't come from being the funniest person in the room. It comes from knowing when to be serious and when to be light-hearted. The trick is finding that sweet spot. Humor should add to the conversation, not take away from it. It should make people feel connected, not distracted, and most importantly, it should reflect your confidence, not your insecurity. A well-timed joke can show that you're sharp and in control, but a constant barrage of jokes can make you look like you're trying too hard. And let's not forget, humor can be risky. Sarcasm, for example, can either make you look witty or make you look like a jerk. It all depends on how it lands. Dark humor, same deal. Know your audience, and for the love of all things good, read the room. There's nothing more cringe-worthy than a joke that bombs, because it was tone-deaf at its core. Humor is a form of communication, and like any other form of communication, it's a reflection of who you are, you using it to build people up, or tear them down, to mask your insecurities, or to show your confidence. Because here's the truth, respect isn't about how many people laugh at your jokes, it's about how your humor makes them feel. So the next time you're about to crack a joke, ask yourself, what's my intent? Am I using humor to connect, or am I hiding behind it? Because when you strike that balance, when you use humor with purpose and confidence, you're not just funny, you're unforgettable. And hey, if all else fails, just remember, dad jokes are always a crowd pleaser, unless they're terrible. In which case, maybe rethink your strategy. Number 5. Drop the gossip. Gossip doesn't make you look interesting, it makes you look untrustworthy. And if you're the one spilling all the tea, guess what? No one's respecting you, they're just entertained until they realize they might be next on your list. Now, don't get me wrong, I get the appeal. Gossip is like social currency. It feels good in the moment, like you're part of some exclusive club. But here's the flip side. Every time you indulge in gossip, you're telling the people around you, I can't be trusted. It's not just about the person you're talking about, it's about you. And if people can't trust you, they can't respect you. Period. I learned this the hard way. Let me tell you about the time I got burned by my own love of gossip. There was this colleague of mine, let's call him Dave. Dave was always showing up late, and one day I made an offhand comment to someone else about how he probably had an alarm clock that hated him. It was a joke, but it spread like wildfire before I knew it. People were adding their own bits to the story. Dave was lazy. Dave didn't care about his job. Dave was this and that, and guess who Dave found out? Started the whole thing. Mr. The worst part. Dave had a perfectly good reason for being late. He was taking care of his sick mom that moment. It hit me like a ton of bricks. My harmless gossip wasn't harmless at all. It was hurtful, and honestly, a little cruel. Here's the thing about gossip. It's never really about the person you're talking about. It's about you. Why are you sharing that story? Are you trying to feel superior? Trying to be interesting? Because if you're being honest with yourself, most gossip comes from a place of insecurity. It's like saying, hey, don't look at my flaw, look at theirs. But here's the harsh reality. When you gossip, people aren't thinking about the person you're trashing, they're questioning your integrity. And let's talk about the flip side. What happens when you don't gossip? When you're the person who refuses to engage in the drama? People notice, they start to see you as someone who can be trusted, someone who doesn't need to tear others down to feel good about themselves. That's the kind of person people respect. Let me tell you, when I started actively avoiding gossip, it changed everything. Instead of jumping into those, oh my God, did you hear about conversations? I just say something neutral like, I hope they're doing okay. At first it felt weird, like I was missing out. But over time I noticed people started coming to me for advice instead of drama. They saw me as someone who could handle things maturely, not someone who would weaponize their secrets. Here's the deeper lesson. Gossip doesn't just hurt other people. It hurts you. It chips away at your credibility, your relationships, and even your self-respect. When you drop the gossip, you're making a statement, I'm better than this. I don't need to build myself up by tearing someone else down. That's where true respect comes from. And let's be real for a second. When you're known as that person who always has the gossip, you're also known as the person who can't keep their mouth shut. And you know what happens to those people? They don't get promoted, they don't get trusted with secrets, and worst of all, they're usually the ones left out when the real stuff goes down. So yeah, maybe ditch the gossip train, it's not going anywhere. Good. At the end of the day, you have to ask yourself, what kind of person do I want to be? Someone who spreads negativity and mistrust, or someone who lifts others up? Gossip feels good in the moment, sure, but respect, that's something that lasts. And respect doesn't come from spilling the tea. It comes from being the person who refuses to pour it. Besides Karen from accounting, she's probably just living her best life. Leave her alone. Number 6. Know when to stop talking. All right, here's a spicy truth bomb for you. Most people talk too much. Yeah, I said it. And you know what? It's costing you respect. The uncomfortable reality is this: sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is nothing, but oh, the temptation to keep going to explain to fill every silence. It's real, right? Let's get into it. Why do we do this? Why do we feel the need to keep talking long after we've made our point? Let's be real. It's insecurity. We think if we stop talking, people will assume we're unsure or that we don't know enough. So we keep rambling, hoping to prove how smart, funny, or valuable we are. News flash overt talking does the opposite. Instead of making you look impressive, it makes you look unsure and, dare I say it, a little desperate. Let me tell you about the time I learned this the hard way. I was pitching an idea to a client, and I thought I absolutely nailed it. But instead of stopping and letting them digest my brilliant point, I just kept going. I rephrased my idea, added unnecessary details, and even tried to anticipate their questions before they could ask. By the end, they weren't nodding. They were looking confused after the meeting. My boss pulled me aside and said, "You had them in the first 30 seconds, but then you lost them. You need to learn when to stop talking." That hit me like a ton of bricks. I realized I wasn't giving people the space to process what I was saying. I was smothering my own message. And here's the controversial part. Sometimes, the more you talk, the less people listen. It's like pouring water into a glass that's already full. It overflows, and none of it sticks. Silence, on the other hand, silence commands attention. It gives your words weight. When you stop talking, you create space for others to think, to respond, to engage. That's where respect grows. Look, I know it's hard. Silence can feel awkward. You say something, and instead of a quick reaction, there's a pause, and your brain starts screaming, "Say something else, fill the gap." But here's the thing, that pause isn't your enemy, it's your ally. It's in those moments of silence that people process your words and decide to take them seriously. Here's the deeper truth. Knowing when to stop talking isn't just about communication, it's about confidence. It's about trusting that your words have value without needing to back them up with endless explanations or filler. It's about being okay with the discomfort of silence, knowing that it speaks louder than noise ever could. And let me just say this, people remember the drop, not the ramble. Think about some of the most impactful speeches or moments in history. They weren't long-winded essays. They were sharp, concise, and deliberate. The power of knowing when to stop talking is like leaving a party at its peak. You leave people wanting more, not wishing you'd go home. I started practicing this in my personal life too. At family gatherings, I used to be the one who always had to fill the silences, cracking jokes or explaining my opinions at length. One day, I decided to just stop. I said my piece, then let the conversation flow. You know what happened? People started noticing me more. They started asking for my thoughts. Instead of tuning me out halfway through, it was like I'd gone from background noise to a focal point, and all I did was talk less. So here's the takeaway. When you know when to stop talking, you show people that you trust your words to stand on their own. You give them the space to actually hear you, to respect you, to engage with what you're saying. And yeah, it takes practice. It takes a little courage to let silence do its thing. But when you master it, the impact is undeniable. And hey, if you're worried about leaving people hanging, don't be. You're not dropping the ball. You're giving them a chance to pick it up. So next time you're in a conversation, try this. Say what you mean. Then stop. Sit with the silence. Trust me, it'll speak volumes. See what I did there? All right, folks. There you have it. Ways to speak, so people respect you. All wrapped up with a little controversy, a lot of honesty, and hopefully a good laugh or two. But let's get real for a second. Respect isn't about following a list of tricks or hacks. It's about how you show up for yourself and others every single day. It's about owning your words, your space, and your impact. Here's the thing, words are powerful. They can build bridges or burn them. They can make people feel seen, or they can make them feel small. And the way you speak doesn't just shape how others see you. It shapes how you see yourself. So whether it's ditching the unnecessary apologies, setting those boundaries, or mastering the art of pausing, remember this respect starts with you. And hey, if any of this hit close to home, or if you're just here for the banter, don't keep it to yourself. Hit that like button, share this with someone who needs to hear it, and let me know in the comments which one of these points are you going to try out first. Or better yet, what's your own secret to commanding respect in conversations? I want to hear from you. And of course, if you're not subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Join the party we're all about. Real talk, life hacks, and maybe the occasional bad joke. Until next time, keep showing up, keep speaking your truth, and most importantly, keep being unapologetically you. Unless you're gossiping, then stop that. All right, I'll see you in the next one. Peace.